The selflessness of phenomena may seem easy to understand, but the attachment to a self in persons is very difficult to eradicate. Of course, when I say the selflessness of phenomena is easy, it is not really so. It is actually harder to realize, but it seems easier to understand. We often say all phenomena are empty in nature. We frequently recite the Heart Sutra, and perhaps we have planted such roots of virtue in past lives. So understanding the emptiness of phenomena feels relatively easier. However, realizing no self in persons is very difficult because we haven't cultivated it in past lives. We consider ourselves Mahayana practitioners and therefore don't study or practice the Hinayana teachings. We underestimate non-self, regarding it as a Hinayana teaching and not practicing it. In reality, it is very important for us. A note in this book says, there is a difference in the understanding of emptiness depending on whether one uses the Hinayana or the Mahayana viewpoint. According to Tranquility, the only difference between these two is the degree of realization and the greater number of practices undertaken in the Mahayana. The quality of the understanding of emptiness is the same. According to Tranquility, the difference between Mahayana and Hinayana is in the depth of realization of emptiness. At the beginning of his work, Entering the Middle Way, Tranquility writes that there is little difference. At the end of the text, he discusses two kinds of selflessness. The selflessness of individuals, such as what is realized by Shravakas, and the selflessness of phenomena in the Mahayana. Among Tibetans, there are two different viewpoints on this. Some say that, according to Tranquility, Shravakas do realize the emptiness of phenomena. Others think that Shravakas realize only the selflessness of individuals, not the selflessness of phenomena. Thus, there is disagreement among Tibetan scholars on this point. I believe that Shravakas do not realize the selflessness of phenomena. Some Sravaka practitioners cannot fully realize the selflessness of phenomena, but they may partially eliminate attachment to phenomena. As you know, Sravaka teachings address indivisible particles and moments, dividing all phenomena down to these indivisible units. This is also a form of the selflessness of phenomena. Since all phenomena are composed of indivisible particles, they don't have an inherent nature. However, they cannot refute the existence of indivisible particles, and therefore cannot fully realize the selflessness of phenomena. They may partially see phenomena as selfless, which still helps counteract afflictions, wrong views, and attachment to phenomena. As you may know, Sravaka practitioners with sharp spiritual faculties can realize up to the level of indivisible particles. But they cannot go further to negate the existence of indivisible particles. For this reason, it is said that they cannot thoroughly realize the selflessness of phenomena. Thus, in this author's opinion, enlightened Sravaka practitioners have not fully realized the selflessness of phenomena. I base this on my study of Entering the Middle Way using Lama Mipam's commentary, which says that the Sravakas don't realize the selflessness of phenomena. Lama Tsongkhapa disagreed with this view, while the 8th Karmapa Mikyo Dorje says that Sravakas do not realize the selflessness of phenomena. Once a person has attained Buddhahood, they have clarity, knowing that everything is empty. One cannot really look and find this wisdom or clarity, but the power of the mind is present. This wisdom is called jnana in Sanskrit and yesha in Tibetan. Along with this jnana or perfect wisdom, there are also love and power. It is love endowed with power, not like the love of a mother without arms trying to save her child who is swept away by a strong current. It means possessing the great ability to save sentient beings. One may ask if the Dharma itself is also empty. The answer is that Dharma teachings do not have true existence in themselves. The Buddha has never truly given any Dharma. All the teachings imparted by the Buddha have no inherent existence. Since all phenomena are inherently empty, how could there be real Dharma? They are all skillful expressions. When one receives Dharma teachings, one benefits from them only through practice. Without practice, receiving teachings is merely hearing words or seeing black ink on white paper if they are written. By themselves, they have no value. Have you remembered this? If no one reads a sutra, it is of little value. Some people say sutras are treasures, they must not be desecrated or soiled. However, if no one ever reads or understands a Dharma text, it is like scrap paper. What value does it have? Dharma texts themselves have no value. Taking another example, what makes a precious human existence valuable? The human body by itself has little value, but when put to use, it can have great value. If one uses one's human life to commit unwholesome actions rather than engage in spiritual practice, what value does it have? Not only does it have no value, but it also creates negative karma. Only by using the human life for Dharma practice does it have immense value. The commentaries describe the teachings as being like a boat. In the old days, boats were made of leather and were not very valuable. The value of a boat lies in its ability to carry one across a river. In a desert, what value does a boat have? It has no value. In the same way, the Dharma and precious human existence are valuable not in themselves, but because one gains great benefit from properly using them. The same applies to human life. It has value only when used for Dharma practice. Without practice, it has no value at all. Our values are based on the pursuit of truth. All activities, the Buddha's teachings, Dharma texts, books, all so-called merits like building temples, and human life itself are grounded in this value system. If we don't use them to pursue truth, they have no value. We often speak of making offerings to the three jewels, or providing food or money to practitioners. If practitioners use these offerings for practice, the offerings have value. If you donate to gamblers or drug dealers, what value does that donation have? The principle is the same. Generosity does not necessarily have value. Everything revolves around the liberation of sentient beings. Anything that helps beings attain liberation is valuable. Whatever benefits liberation, Even the stone has value. If striking a stone makes you enlightened, it is immensely valuable, more valuable than any jade, for without it you could not attain enlightenment. Another note says, one might wonder about emptiness and awareness at the time of total liberation. Buddhahood is called liberation, but it is not like something newly obtained or achieved. Liberation is the realization of the actual nature of phenomena without contrivance. Realizing the true nature of all phenomena without contrivance leads to liberation. Why? Previously, we were attached to these illusions, regarding them as truly existent, so we could not attain liberation. Once we recognize that all phenomena are empty in nature, we attain liberation. Because one doesn't realize the natural state of phenomena, one is in a state of delusion, believing in what doesn't exist. Unaware of the truth, one is deluded, failing to recognize the natural or true state of phenomena. Ordinary beings tend to regard illusory things as truly existent, experiencing fear and delusion. Once one realizes this natural state, one attains liberation from samsara. To do this, one first analyzes phenomena through reasoning. Through this analysis, one comes to understand the true nature of phenomena. First analyze, then gradually understand the true nature of things. Yet even with this understanding, one is still not familiar with it. Even though we have understood the true nature of phenomena, our old habits remain. We are still accustomed to our habitual patterns and often fall back into our previous state of clinging. Hence, we need repeated training. To attain complete liberation, one needs to become thoroughly familiar with the true nature of phenomena. We should continuously habituate ourselves to the correct understanding and view. In this way, we can gradually attain liberation. We need to train the mind with the right view over the long term, never forgetting it. We should always be mindful of the true nature of things and gradually let go of attachment. Over time, we can realize emptiness. In Tibetan Buddhism, some great masters can press their hands onto rocks and leave imprints. Why? Because they have realized emptiness. In their state, rocks are empty. This is not just a view, but an actual realization. After truly realizing that the aggregate of form is empty, one can press a hand into a rock and leave an imprint, just as a hand leaves a print in mud. Milarepa could fly through space, move backward, lie down and sleep in the air, and pass freely through rocks. This is not something achieved through mere intellectual understanding. Even with intellectual understanding and long-term habituation, one still cannot do so. Deep meditation is required. Even those who have attained enlightenment cannot immediately achieve such states. They need long-term practice to gradually realize that the 5 aggregates are all empty. Tilopa asked, "Where is the sesame oil?" The oil is within the seeds, but one cannot obtain it simply by eating sesame seeds. To extract sesame oil, one needs to beat, grind, or crush the seeds. In the same way, Buddhahood is present in everyone. This means all sentient beings have Buddha nature. But to attain liberation, we should devote ourselves to meditation. As the sutras illustrate, gold ore contains gold, but it is not yet gold. The gold is within it, but it must be smelted and refined to extract pure gold gradually. Similarly, sentient beings inherently possess the wisdom and virtues of the Tathagata, but they are obscured by habitual ignorance. Another example of liberation is the analogy of the rope and the snake. In a poorly lit room, one might mistake a rope for a snake, giving rise to great fear. This fear arises from the illusion that the rope is a snake. To be free from that fear, one must realize that the snake is actually a rope. No other solution, such as wielding a weapon or taking an antidote to snake venom, will work. Even using a weapon or taking an antidote to snake venom cannot eliminate this fear. When one turns on the light of wisdom and sees that it is not a snake, the fear vanishes instantly. When wisdom awakens, we see the reality. The rope itself does not change either before or after. The only difference is that before one was ignorant, and afterward one discovers the truth. So, to attain the complete peace of mind of Buddhahood, one needs to receive the teachings, follow the methods taught by the Buddha, and meditate on them, thereby removing delusions and realizing the true nature of the mind. Actually, spiritual practice is just like this, very simple. Ultimately, it is about dispelling confusion and seeing the truth. I explain the true nature of phenomena every day, but because of karmic obstacles, you still cannot internalize it. I explain that things are illusory, but you still regard them as truly existent. I emphasize that there is no self, yet you still have a sense of self. I have explained non-self countless times, but you still cling to the notion of a self. Your karmic habits are too deeply ingrained. At this point, faith plays an important role. If you have faith, its great power can help you dispel ignorance easily. Without faith, it is very difficult to rely solely on your own efforts. If you believe that the teacher has already walked the path, then the power of faith can help you quickly eradicate the view of self, awaken wisdom, and understand what you couldn't grasp before. We discuss Vipassana frequently in our daily teachings, so this chapter may not seem especially profound in content. Tomorrow, we will learn how to combine Samatha and Vipassana, a topic I have already explained countless times.